Okay, hello. Welcome to H3, the show about health, hope, and happiness. Brother Scott, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm a little cross-eyed. I was programming all afternoon, and it's a great challenge. And I love a challenge, but my eyes are getting a little older than they used to be. So I find, where are they here? I can't find them now, but I have to put on these big goggle-looking glasses. So I'm going no glasses so that my eyes can have a rest because I got to go back to it after the show. How about you? Busy day?
I had an excellent day. I had nice meetings, and as you know, we had our little team meeting thing, and had a meeting with. It was a great day. Went out for lunch, had a nice chat with my friend DP. So yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful! So it was a great day full of productivity and exploration, communication.
It was very nice connection, a lot of connection. So that's always important, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I was sharing a little bit of facts today, but there's a new report out talking about the wellness of single people in Canada who live alone, and the numbers on the rise. And the concern is, and this is just coming out to be news apparently, but it's something we've been talking about on our show since the beginning, is that the people often have many days and even weeks where they don't communicate with anyone and they don't feel they have any support or connection to anyone.
Yeah.
For
Wow.
days and weeks. And this new report says that's not good for people.
No.
H3 could have told him that, has been telling him that. They didn't need to spend $1 million on a survey.
Exactly.
Stuff, right?
Exactly. We would let them know. Wouldn't have been any problem.
Exactly. Yeah. But it is, all joking aside, I mean, it's not a laughable subject, but it's really important that people reach out there. And if you see somebody that's shut in, we have a neighbor here that after her husband passed away, she went through a period where she was a little bit difficult to deal with. She kept calling the police on everyone in the neighborhood if the wind blew the wrong way and stuff. But we all tried to, stop in and say hello. And she's got through it now, and she's back to communicating with people. And,
Nice.
And it's just, I think she went through a period of withdrawal and, sadness, and it affected her.
Yes.
But luckily, people were willing to push the boundaries a little bit, and not rudely, but just, stopping in, saying hi, and that kind of stuff. And she came out of it just with that contact and time. So it's important.
So connection, super important for happiness, right, Scott?
Yeah, and that's the topic of tonight's show. Just to let everyone know, that little email scrolling across the bottom is our new H3 email address. Because very shortly here, our friend Alex is going to have us up and running on our podcast. I've been feeding him information and getting everything ready, so that'll be coming up. But tonight's show is something kind of special, right, Al?
I think so. And if we have people listening to this as a podcast, the email address is H3, the number 3, at allanfriesen.com, ALLANFRIESEN.com. Okay, carry on.
Good job. You ninja that podcast bit in there. Well done. I was thinking 2 lines ahead to where we're headed with tonight's show, but you got it. I'll make sure I remember that. So tonight we're going to do something special, and I'm going to be the guinea pig, if you will, or Alan's going to be the psychological surgeon. And what we're going to do is we introduced it. Alan introduced it on last show before. Anyway.
Last show.
Yeah. About a group called Action for Happiness. And you can find them on the web. They're Action for, FOR, happiness.org. And they have a program called Action for Happiness, which I think is the same name as the organization. But Al took this course and you passed, right?
Yeah, I passed.
Now that I agreed to this, I should have checked that before I agreed. No, of course, Alan passed. But the nice thing about this is that I haven't taken the course. I've only looked over the material. Alan's taken the course, and one of his homework assignments, which he's already completed, but we're going to do tonight for my benefit and any of you that are interested, is, well, why don't you tell us, Al, what it's going to be, and then I'll just say a few more things about.
Yeah. So the homework assignment was that basically you just initiate a conversation with somebody about happiness, right? That's really all it is. And so, and then of course, from taking the course, I might have some insights to share, but I expect that intuitively, you haven't taken the course, but you'll know the components anyways. And I think all of us do, right? I think it's just kind of a reminder and an awareness of that. And then, how we incorporate that into our daily practices in order to maximize our happiness is really what it's about. So yeah, so there's no skill testing questions here, Scott. This is you're gonna
Okay. And I've been studying all afternoon for this. No, I lied. I've been coding Salesforce. But so what this is Alan's going to, and I published them on the advertising for tonight's show on the Acapella site, mine and H3's. And there's a little list of things that Alan's going to be aware of when he's initiating this conversation. And I think just from reading that, one of the things that it's designed to do is help people who are a little awkward approaching strangers and talking about something personal like happiness without crossing boundaries, without, getting in too deep or making things worse. Am I right? Is that?
Yeah. Now there was specific questions. I did that a week ago. Did I say you?
No, not specific questions, but things that, like points that you're going to be aware of through the process.
Okay, great. All right. So, okay.
Yeah.
And I can't actually remember what I sent you, Scott. So I'm just going to make it up, and then you can tell me where I miss it. Okay.
Well, I can dig them up, but I'm quite sure you'll remember them. I just want to say the Action for Happiness has been around. They celebrated their 10th anniversary in 2021. So they have been around, 13 years now? Yeah. Well, 12 or 13 years. They're non-denominational. This I got a chuckle out of, but their patron is the Dalai Lama. And that's kind of interesting because I know the Dalai Lama doesn't really consider himself religious. He's really interesting if you read his stuff. And
yes,
he just considers himself a dude, right? Like other dudes.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, that wasn't very inclusive language, but he pretty much just figures he's like the rest of us here doing the best that he can to be the best that he can. And we can all do that, whether we're Christian or Muslim or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not being happiness. There's no religion that says you have to be unhappy, right? I mean, that's not the way it is. We all have the opportunity and the ability to be happy. And so no matter what your faith is, no matter what your color of your skin is, no matter what your sexual orientation is, everybody can be happy, and there's room for everybody's different variation of what that happiness means, right? So
yeah, and I think that's why the Dalai Lama as a patron is a pretty good choice, because he's very much into whatever form you happen to be in this life, bring it on. Let's connect. Let's share. Let's be together. And, and I'm Christian. I've never hid that fact. And, we have some rules. We're inclusive, but depending on what brand of Christian you happen to adhere to, there are some rules. Judaism, the Old Testament, if you're a very traditional Jew, you have to be born a Jew. You can't become a Jew. And then, so the Dalai Lama is a pretty good patron, even though he's associated with it, a religion, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
I forget we don't have as long as we want to talk about these things anymore.
Exactly. We're trying to keep these to 30 minutes, Scott.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Okay.
But they do have 10 keys, and I just wanted to share these, right? Because these are things that affect everyone. Do you want to do the 10 keys? You want me to do?
You share them, Scott. Go ahead.
Okay. Giving, right? Doing kind things to others, relating, connecting with people, exercising, take care of your body, awareness, live life mindfully, trying out, keep learning new things. I love that one, man. For me, that's like my nirvana right there. Direction, have goals to look forward to, right? Resilience, find ways to bounce back. And I think you can learn resilience. I don't think that you have to be born with resilience. Emotions, look for what's good, but the program, there's some protractors of positive psychology that say that, people, and I was reading one article and they were talking about, the crazy zealots of happiness. And I thought, well, Al and I fall into that category because, but what they were talking about is that bad feelings aren't necessarily bad for us it's how we deal with them, and if they become prolonged or self-destructive. Like, we all get sad, and that's okay. It's
Sure.
okay
And
not
being
to feel
aware,
sad.
being mindful of those feelings and the source of that is important, right? Like,
Yeah.
that self-awareness is very valuable to subscribe to, right? As opposed to, I'm sad, I'm going to take something to dull this sadness, right? To
Yeah.
I'm going to eat, or I'm going to drink, or I'm going to do some drugs or something to get me away from this sadness. That's, you understand what the source of the sadness is, accept that you are, and then find a way to move forward from there, right? So
Acceptance, that's the next key. So we sort of covered that one, but it's both internal and external acceptance. Be comfortable with who you are, and allow people and encourage people to be comfortable with who they are, right?
yes.
And the last one is I think pretty important, and I think something that we struggle with in modern society, and that's to live with meaning. Realize that you're part of something bigger. And uh,
Yes.
if you've ever been somewhere really, really dark where there's no light pollution and looked up in the sky, the universe is mind-boggling. You feel like a molecule, which basically we are. We're, in the grand scheme of measurement, we're not that important at all, but we're still part of it, right?
Right.
And that's the important thing. It doesn't matter if you're big or small, all those other things that you said, you're still part of it. There's a
Yes.
place for you, and you're connected to everything else around you and everyone else around you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Very
those are the
true.
keys
Yes.
to
Nice.
to action for happiness. So
Yes.
what we're going to do tonight is Alan's going to have a conversation with me. I'm me. I'm not the co-host, and Alan's just going to have a conversation to hopefully increase my happiness, or encourage me to increase my happiness, which is more often the outcome, right?
Yes. And I think where I want to start with that, Scott, is, let me ask you this question.
Mm.
When do you recall that you were your happiest? Happiest. That's the word I'm trying to say. Happiest.
Wow.
Yeah. So what time in your life, or what stage in your life, and it could be a singular event, or it could be something like a period that you've gone through or are going through now, when you felt at your happiness of your whole life.
And honesty is required here, because you and I are always honest, even if it gets us in
Yeah.
trouble. When my daughters were little, when they were 2 and 3.
Nice. Yeah, sure. I can see that, right? I mean, sharing in the wonder of a child or children in your case, and what they're learning and what they're experiencing and what they ask you, and what, that's magical, right? So,
Well, I
yeah.
got to live vicariously through them. So it was like being a kid again, but
Yes.
because I just followed them around. They were incredible explorers. Like, everything was interesting to them, and I would just follow them. And of course, they had all of the intellect of an adult, but they reintroduced me to that wonder of being a child, where everything, dirty stuff, clean stuff, ugly stuff, pretty stuff, it was all stuff to explore.
Yes.
And that was just an amazing state of grace for me. And I
Yes.
just remember getting lost in that happiness and just being part of that. I don't even know how to describe it, but yeah, that would probably be my most adult memory of being completely happy.
Yeah. And if you think about that time, and you think about that list of 10 that you just went through,
Mhm.
one huge connection, strong connection with your daughters,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
You're very tied to them. You vicariously, you had that whole experience of exploration and the curiosity of learning and continuing to grow and develop and that kind of a thing with them, right? That you were having that experience, right? I think you could probably go through that whole list and find, oh, here's where this was, this facet was satisfied through that experience. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that meaning is something, and it's something I really enjoy about my job now, helping people, whether it's helping our team or whether it's helping clients. And when when the girls were little, they were basically completely dependent on their parents. And I mean, we had lots of people. We had a great community, and we had our own school. So the kids grew up with tons of, honorary brothers and sisters around them. But that, I guess, it's that being needed, and feeling like you're helping another being grow and improve and be safe and healthy and happy. Yeah, I think that meaning was something that I've lost at times during my life that have brought me sadness.
Wouldn't you agree that that meaning that really that became your purpose, right? Your a big part of your purpose was
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
guiding and supporting and loving those girls so
Absolutely.
that they would have their best life kind of a thing, right? So
Yeah. And then we extended that to all the kids in the school, which was just another amazing situation where we had all of these other wonderful little beings that were, wanting and needing and growing and learning and sharing and giving, and
yeah,
so yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
that's really true. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would suggest as well that you experienced a great deal of gratitude at that time as
Mm.
well, right? Gratitude, just that you were their dad, right? That was so gratifying to be there and just grateful for that experience to be, alive and have those moments and those hours and those days with them, right? So,
Yeah, and I get really stressed out with politics in that kind of like maneuvering that the
yes,
kids never do, and
right,
and unfortunately adults seem to do too much of. I've never really understood that game very well, and so I tend to just we're going straight through this because and kids are like that. They're like, okay, let's just go. Let's we're not going to worry about all these things. We're just going to try it, and if we fall down, we'll cry and somebody will kiss it better and we'll get up and we'll just go running again, right?
right, exactly. And like further, I think again vicariously, and maybe something you miss now, perhaps, is the ability, the capacity to stay in that present moment, right? To be
Mm.
there for whatever the experience was unfolding, whether it was, eating some ice cream or, getting an owie kiss down kind of a thing, whatever your experience was, that, they were present for it, right? They were not thinking about, oh yeah, well, I got this bill I got to pay and this blah, blah, blah. And,
Yeah.
they were, and there were no, not thinking about regrets or things that have happened in the past, but very much immersed in the current experience they're having, right? And that the whole course talks so much about your ability to be mindful and present and gratitude. Like those are pretty much the three key things that they like to stress and encourage you to develop those muscles, if you will, to enjoy each moment, to be grateful for just how things are right now, to be grateful even just for the miracle of breath, the amazing rhythm that's in your chest, right? And to know that you're sharing that with every other human being on the planet, kind of a thing, right? That's kind of the commonality we all have, is that we all have that experience. And if we're just quiet and enjoy that experience, it can be very pleasant, right? Just, I guess if you had breathing problems, it'd be a different thing. But if you breathe, if you have normal breathing type capacity, taking a nice big deep diaphragmatic breath and have a full exhale kind of a thing, can be just an amazingly enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that, as a parent and talking about that, one of the things, and it's not just kids, it's pets. Anytime you have connection, you're going to have loss, right?
Yes.
And distance. And one of the tenets of Buddhism, which I mean is sort of off topic, but not really, is the idea of non-attachment, right? And I
Yes.
found like with the girls, Katrina still lives here. Sabrina lives here when she's not in Japan studying, or she's going to Malaysia or somewhere next. And, as a dad, it's not that I love them any less. It's not that they love me any less, but they have their own now to be in, right?
Mhm.
Like they've got their own, they're studying and they've got relationships and stuff. And so they're no longer mine now in the way we're
Right.
talking about it,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Sure.
pets, if you don't have kids, if you've had a pet, if, everyone is somebody's child, there's somebody you're connected to in some way, no matter who you are, that, over time things change. And we have to learn, I think, to accept that, like I'm lucky, my daughter's younger, they're still here. Your daughter moved to another part of the world, not across, but far south, right? And you get to see her
Once a year.
not as much as you would like, obviously.
Yeah.
uh,
Once a year normally, right?
yeah,
And the good news is that we can say as parents that we did a real good job raising her as
Oh,
parents, because she's independent. She doesn't need us for anything,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But the bad news is she doesn't need us for anything. So we don't like you. We just don't have as much connection with her, right? So yeah.
How do you think we stay happy? So kids, dogs, whatever. This is a topic on happiness. Is how do we deal with, not, it's not a loss, that change in, I don't know how to describe it. You know what I mean, right? Like,
I
it's
think
not.
it is a loss, and I think to grieve that you don't have as close as relationship as you would like or have now is like, that's a real thing to do, right? To be aware of that. But like your neighbor, who was first of all, calling the cops and blah blah blah, and everything was wrong,
Yeah.
then ultimately she came to the point where she could connect with other people around her, right? And knew that those other people had her best interest in heart, and right, and knew that she could have like a positive interaction with them, right? So I like we can connect with everybody. We can connect with people at the grocery store, or at the barista at
Yeah.
Starbucks, or the or the every person that you encounter every day. There's an opportunity to connect, even if it's just, hey, love your scarf, or "Yeah, that pink hair you're wearing is like that. Woo, that's amazing." Whatever it is, right?
Well, and we are blessed with memory, and I think about the people, and I love pretty hard. I guess we all do, but I'm pretty sensitive, and I'm really don't like losing things or people, and when people have passed away. But we have the ability to remember. Like, I have the ability to go back to when the girls were 2 and 3, and remember that, and be in that time, even though it's not that time, right? I can be in the moment of me, 57-year-old me, who now has 21-year-old daughters instead of 2-year-old daughters,
Yeah.
remembering that, right?
Right.
Like, I think that's an amazing ability that we have as organisms, that we can revisit them as long as we don't get stuck there, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we get
Yeah.
stuck there, then we have a problem.
Yeah. No, no, I agree entirely. And you think about this, your memory and your happiness, and how events from the past, if you recount those, not that you have to live there, but just to kind of revel in that, I did this, right? This was
Mhm.
an experience I had. I own it forever, right? I was chatting with this gentleman today. He's a lovely human being, and he had taken his friend who had MS to Egypt. And basically the friend, like his health was failing, and he had said that he wanted to go to Egypt, right? And obviously there's a limited duration as to when he could go, because his health was going south. But he took, connected with him, encouraged him, had him have this experience in Egypt, which forever changed DP, and forever changed his friend, right?
Mhm.
That was something that they had to share and enjoy forever. Just the memory of that time and that experience and that exploration, and that that the newness of that situation, right? I think that's a beautiful thing.
Well, and as you point out a lot, as long as that thing is thumping in our chest and we're taking in air, we have a chance to make new connections.
Definitely.
And even when I was, on that edge of living and dying in the hospital, the nurses that were bending over me and, taking care of whatever they were taking care of, there was a connection. I couldn't talk to them, but when I was conscious after the coma, I
Yeah.
could see them and they could see me. And I'm sure that connect, I remember it. So there was some kind of connection made,
Sure.
right? I can still see their faces. And I think that as long as we have that thump thump going on, we have an opportunity to make new connections, right?
Definitely we do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And as long as we don't sit around and wait for the connections to come to us,
Right.
then we have opportunities to make them, right? The only way you can fail at making connections is to stop,
Right. Yep,
right?
I agree entirely. Like, so you pick up the phone and you call your neighbor down the road who lost her husband 5 years ago, and just,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'm checking in with you. How are you doing? Can I buy you a coffee? Can I come over and bring you some pie that I made?" Or whatever the situation is, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's so many opportunities like that, that we can act on, and in so extending that kindness, then it bolsters our kindness and our happiness just by, making even if they refuse, even if they say, no, I don't want to do that. Well, okay. If you change your mind, I would love to do that with you. Right. So, yeah.
Well, people are often sort of critical of our Lethbridge City Police for for one or two incidences where maybe the best choices weren't made, but they don't think about the tens of thousands of choices the Lethbridge Police make that are fantastic every day. And
Definitely.
with our neighbor, they were really, they're like, well, you could file a complaint, and she's called us so many times that we would charge her.
Yeah.
But if you can keep trying to connect with her, we're pretty confident that that the situation will improve. We
Yes.
know she's working with a health person and those things. And they could have escalated the system, but they were supportive. And I guess that's what my point is that in any community, and I mean any community, there are organizations, there are people, there are groups, there are couples, there are people that will help you connect.
Definitely. Yeah. That want to help, that are there and would relish the opportunity to help. Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and because they want to connect. I mean, the prime motivator for people helping other people is it helps them, right?
Definitely so.
I
Yeah.
mean,
No
that's what
question.
motivates us, is that feeling of helping somebody else is like a drug to our, like, all the chemical stuff that goes on and all the emotional stuff that goes on. So you may have to look, you may have to call a number, you may have to be brave and say, hi, I don't know you, but I've seen you, and I just thought I'd say hi. How are you doing today? And the person may seem surprised at first and like, whoa, but there will be somebody who wants to talk to you. And
Yeah.
that's the simple truth. There
Yeah.
is somebody for everyone. There is an organization that will help you. There is a group that will help you, right?
That reminds me of everybody needs somebody to love, someone to love.
Amen. Yeah, it's very true, and I know that we have lots of suffering going on in lots of places in our community, but there's lots of people that will help, and you may not find the right connection the first time. Part of that connection thing is that it's magical because it's not always easy,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Definitely so.
and it's like flowers. One of the reasons we don't like weeds, and some weeds are beautiful, we
Yes.
don't like weeds because they're common. They're everywhere. They'll grow in anything, right?
Yeah.
They're not special
Yeah.
because they're not difficult to grow. Why do we love things like orchids? Because they're difficult. Not, they take energy, they take time, they take care. I knew an orchid breeder in Japan, and he was obsessed. His whole house was orchids, and he created a strain that was named after him eventually.
Wow.
But we had a talk. Well, why don't you like weeds? Like, there's some, like canola here, we use our Roundup friend to kill it off everywhere if it gets in your yard. In Japan, it's an ornamental flower. They have it, like the botanical garden says, these big beautiful displays with rapeseed or canola, right?
Wow.
It's here, if it's outside of our fields, it's a weed. We don't want that sucker.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think relationships are like that, right?
Yeah.
Where
That's a nice analogy, Scott. That's nicely done.
relationships are like canola and rapeseed. Yeah.
Oh.
Coming from a farming background, yeah. Well, it is true that you have to plant and you have to tend, and to harvest a relationship, you have to plant a seed and you have to tend that seed, and you will eventually harvest that. And you may be a few years with barren ground, but if you keep planting and keep tending it, you can get something to grow on bare rock if you give it enough attention and love.
That's very true. Very well said. Hey, can I just I had a major insight today.
Lay it on me.
Well, okay. So I am a hugger, as you know. And so in the past, I kind of accidentally breach people's boundaries by just giving them a hug without asking, right?
Right.
So now I've got smarter and, more respectful of people's boundaries. And so I always ask, are you okay with a hug, right? And I today realized that I haven't had somebody say no for like at least 2 months. Every time I offer one, they say, "Yeah, bring it on." And so, especially guys, because guys don't get hugs much, right? It doesn't
Oh,
happen
yeah.
very
I
often.
come from a family of huggers, so
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a lot of people out there that don't, right? So, and
yeah.
there's some that will decline, but it's been like I say, weeks for sure since anybody's ever declined a hug, and I offer them every day. So, yeah,
I can say with truth in adult memory, I've never declined a hug.
never
Somebody
declined.
comes at me with a hug, man, I don't care if they're been in the field for 30 hours straight and covered and or cleaning pens or living on the street, man. If somebody wants to give me a hug, I figure let's get her done, right? So
Nice, nice. So it doesn't matter if they're a little stinky, you're okay with that still.
it can
So
be a lot. Yeah. It's I think that when you enter into a hug, you're in this magical space,
yes,
that everything will be okay for that time you're hugging, that you're like in that cone of enlightenment or something. I don't know. I think hugs are magical.
I think they are too. I
Yeah.
think they're too. I think I told you this before, Scott. There was a Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate was talking to like a person addicted on Hastings Street in Vancouver, right? About his heroin habit. And the person, the street person who was doing heroin all the time, said basically heroin is like a warm hug. Like
Mhm.
that was his analogy, right? So how about we do more warm hugs and less
With
heroin? Like
heroin,
that'd
yeah.
be, yeah, that'd be a good thing. Yes.
Not that I think we've tried heroin, but
No,
it's yeah, it's
I haven't for sure. Have you, Scott?
no,
No? Okay, just check it.
yeah, no. In college, I tried speed and of course some pot and once magic mushrooms, but yeah, nothing beyond that. So I
Okay,
had a
well,
good
before
friend.
brother,
Sorry.
before you get to like, revealing your past habits, we are at 30 minutes. We're past 30 minutes again.
Not a habit, Al, not experimentation.
Okay,
One
okay.
time.
Okay, one
But
time.
yes, we are at 30 minutes. We'll save that for another show. But
Yes. Did
yeah.
we talk about happiness pretty much? I think we stayed on
Yeah, we,
topic,
we
didn't we?
did, I think. And you got me to pinpoint. And it was nice to talk about because it's not
Yeah.
something, I just don't walk up to people and say, hi there. I really loved being a dad when my kids were little. I don't mean
Yeah.
I like being a dad less now, but so yeah, that's and you handled it, right? I mean, we
So,
already
yeah.
talked about it.
Yeah, so we're going to wrap this up. But Action for Happiness, check it out. I've taken it so that I can be a facilitator for it. So they are kind of matching me up with another facilitator. So it could be 2-person facilitation of this Action for Happiness course. But you don't have to wait for me. You just go online and take it too. So there's a course and it's actually in the link for this show. But take us home, Scott.
I am happier. And I hope that those of you that are watching or listening to the show are happier too, because of my good friend Alan Friesen, the acapellist, and myself, Scott Sweetman. A little note, we'll be here at 7:30 next week for those of you that are watching us live, not 7 o'clock. Thank you very much for joining us this week. We'll see you again.
All right. Good night. Get him out.